Hello, it's Sunday, March 9th in the year 2025. God bless you wherever you may be. Welcome to Darkness is Falling, video number 379 in this series exposing the Jesuit Vatican shadow empire as the true cause of all revolutions, genocide, war, and deception for the last 500 years, and the one and only candidate for the fourth iron Roman beast system described trampling and crushing the nations in the prophetic books of Daniel and Revelation. I hope that wherever you may be, you are indeed well and prospering, and that your day is sunny like it is here. Amazingly, I just see remnants of chemtrails. We are blasted continuously with chemtrails, as probably are you, wherever you may be. The poison keeps raining down on us and filters into everything. And there's nothing we can do about it. I'm adding, before I get started, I'm adding to the discussion on the Donald Trump tariff fiasco. I need to emphasize again that these celebrity tranny politicians are all in this together. To think otherwise is to not understand or get what is going on. Now, if you're still struggling with this, please understand they are all in this together. The world is a stage. Whoever Shakespeare was, he said it correctly, and he was probably a Jesuit. The world is a stage, and all these celebrity tranny politicians are actors, acting their part on the stage. If you do not understand this or accept this, you will never, ever understand the depth of the deception that is absolutely engulfed us. You'll never get it. All these people belong to the United Nations World Government. Not to the American government, not to the Russian or the Chinese or the Mexican or the Fijian or wherever people may be. They don't belong to those governments. They belong to the United Nations World Image of the Beast World Government. That's how you have to see things. They belong to the Security Council or the G7 or G8 or G20 UN conferences. They all speak the same beast language. They are all following the same beast script. And if you don't understand this, like I said before, you just will never, ever get what is going on. Now, I've been talking about this a long time, and some of you listening to this video may be coming here for the first time. From where, I don't know, because I've been doing this for a long time. And if you are new here, you're welcome. And if you don't understand fully what's going on, I urge you to get up to date quickly so that you are not engulfed by this incredible deception that is swallowing up the world. Now, once again, with this Donald Trump tariff warfare, we see problem, reaction, solution, scenario, and action. 1, 2, 3. We see it again. In every news item, we see this happening. Problem, reaction, solution. It plays out over and over and over again. And you must get this firmly fixed in your mind whenever you hear anything in the news. If you don't do this, you will be lost, because you will not understand the Jesuits' primary strategy for deceiving. It is create a problem, get a reaction, usually a knee-jerk reaction, and then bring in your solution. Now, this goes even deeper. What we are really seeing is, in fact, a spiritual, natural, spiritual process. That's what's taking place. It's a three-step process where the spiritual drives the problem. People have a natural reaction which drives the spiritual solution and puts it in place, entrenches it even more. So problem, reaction, solution becomes spiritual, natural, spiritual. It's a process. The devil uses this process over and over with brilliant effect because people do not know their enemy. Now, the problem is demonically inspired in order to drive a natural reaction from people, which then results, like I said, in a spiritual solution, which will result ultimately in complete satanic unity at the end of all this. People can't see this reality, even though they talk about it all the time. People are talking about one world. They talk about the universe. They talk about the cosmos. They talk about They talk about oneness all the time without realizing what that oneness will be in the end. They have a false understanding of what the oneness will be. It will not be freedom. It'll be slavery. Now, people can't see this reality because they are lost and blind. They've rejected Christ. But this is what is happening. It is the spiritual driving the natural change, resulting in a universal or common ground for all. The many being subsumed by the one. Now, I've talked about this spiritual principle many times. It's found in many philosophies. The many being absorbed or subsumed by the one and becoming one with the one. This principle is laid out all through the Matrix movie series. They told us, people. Neo was the one. The machine was the one. There were two ones fighting with each other to become the one that subsumed the many. And this principle is exactly what is taking place worldwide. Now, the flip-flopping and changes made by Donna in this last week are absolutely phenomenal. From day to day, Donna and her cronies are flip-flopping. And these flip-flops are designed to cause confusion and anxiety. And wow, the news is just full of all of this nonsense. Now, the uncertainty from flip-flopping is what drives people to make hasty decisions and escalates the anger and division. Now, all this flip-flopping is understood by the others, the other politician trannies. They all understand what Donna is doing because it's all being agreed upon beforehand. It's part of the plan. So they are acting along with Donna. And this is what people just cannot seem to get their heads around. And it is freaky, but that is what it is. Now, the Trump tariff problem is now being countered by the tariff retaliation reaction by Canada and by other Roman governors. It's on, it's off, it's here, it's there, it's up and down. It's all satanic nonsense. It's a tariff game, people, playing on feelings of nationalism. And who is the target and prize in this game? You and I. Who do American tariffs punish? The American people. Who do Canadian tariffs punish? The Canadian people. So in effect, Trump and Trudeau are punishing and oppressing their own peoples. If China imposes tariffs on American goods and services, then they also will be punishing the Chinese people, not Americans. This is how tariffs work. People do not seem to understand that there are a number of things going on here at the same time. You've got to stop and really think about what's going on here. Together, these Masonic puppet politicians are deceiving people into believing that America is the enemy and that now they're all going to unite and fight against America, the enemy, with their counter tariffs. The only victims in reality at the end of all of this are the people who live in these Jesuit Roman provinces. You and I, we're the victims. And we are meant to be the victims. All this nonsense going on is just stage acting. I hope you can see the divide and conquer strategy at play here. The solution the beast brings in will bring us even closer to world unification, as I have been saying for a long time now in many videos. That is where this is all going, because that's what the Bible says. And if God says that this is where it's all going, I'm going to say that this is where this is all going. It's all going towards a one world beast unified system. That's a new word, unified. Just made that up right there. Now, there will be division after division, as we've seen in the past, division after endless division after division, using politics until everyone cries out for peace in desperation and arrives at unity. Now, the world already is unified, but people just can't see it. And that's how this beast strategy works. Donald Trump is not smart enough to even know fully what the end result of the tariff inquisition will be. And yes, the tariffs are another form of Jesuit inquisition. Now, Donna just does what she is told, and the other puppet politicians like Trudeau, Jinping, and Sheinbaum will also just do as they're told to retaliate against them. It's all play acting. It's theater. Now, once again, it is a totally pre-planned conflict, and they're all in on it. There's no heroes here, no hero politicians here. There's just victims at the end of this. You watch. You'll see exactly what I'm saying come to pass. There's just victims in this scenario. We're all shuffling closer and closer and closer to this end scenario. Now, the result will be economic hardship for all. This crazy, tranny, clown scenario has all been pre-planned to crush the peoples economically. The Jesuits have achieved their goal in just a few short weeks because they have managed to polarize the world once again, and no one sees what is going on. It's absolutely amazing. Now, if you thought that Donna was just making an economic mistake, then you have not even begun to understand that she is a total puppet following a Jesuit script to the T, to the letter. It is time on the biblical timetable for the beast to destroy the American Canadian, Mexican, and Chinese economies. And they want you and I to believe that it is one woman doing it all by herself for no logical reason except to MAGA, to make America great again. It couldn't be farther from the truth. Now, Donna and Ilona, yes, that's right, Elon Musk is Ilona. Donna and Ilona and cronies are getting ready to sell off the federal government assets like buildings, the U.S. Postal Service, and Amtrak. Yes, they are. They're going to sell everything off if it hasn't already been sold off. Most countries, all these things have been sold off already. Everything is being corporatized, people. Corporatized. It means everything is owned by a corporation. Now, we already are owned by the Roman corporation. Most people just don't understand this. Now, Roman total fascism is becoming easier and easier to see if you understand this merging of business and politics, this fascism. And the business and government work together to control and enslave the populations. And if you can't see this happening, it's regrettable, because this has been going on forever and has really sped up in the last decade. Now, they are shutting down many government departments already in the United States, and getting ready for smaller centralized government. And this has been happening or will happen shortly in all the Roman provinces. Tens of thousands of people are being fired or retired early. Now, this is happening presently in the United States, but it will happen everywhere. The UBI, or Universal Basic Income for All, is coming into clearer view as multitudes become permanently unemployed. This is what's happening, people. As businesses go out of business, as people lose their jobs all over the place, they're going to be put on a UBI. Now, in the end, to get that UBI, you're going to need to be marked, but maybe not initially for a short period of time. But this is what is happening. In fact, many people already are on some sort of social security or social welfare benefit. So the UBI is being in place in many places in the world already for quite some time. Now, social media comments on a recent CNN video of Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, threatening retaliatory tariffs show that people have absolutely no idea what is going on. It is all patriotic, nationalistic sentiments supporting Canada as a perceived victim and underdog. The only us and them truth is the beast versus the peoples, not Canada against America, or America against Canada, or any of these countries against each other. That's not the true us and them narrative. I'm just going to read some of these comments. One of them says, and I have no idea where these people are. I assume that most of them are Americans. The first one says, how can one man cause so much damage around the world? He must be removed. This is insanity. This person has absolutely no idea what's going on. Another one says, sir, an American here. You don't have to apologize to us. Y'all do your thing, we get it. And there's millions of us who understand, and we're 100% behind you. Much love, Canadian sisters and brothers. Now, that's an American, but can you see the sentiment? Sisters and brothers. What kind of sisters and brothers? Well, sisters and brothers of the one world, humanist, lovely, we're all together in this fighting against tyranny brotherhood. That one. Yeah, that's exactly what does exist and what people believe, but that's not where this is all going. Now, another comment said, as an Aussie, this is coming from Australia, I'm joyous at the solidarity of the Canadians and proud to be a fellow Commonwealth country. Oh, boy, this person doesn't even know that there is no Commonwealth. This is how brainwashed people are. They have no idea of the world that they are truly living in. And many of these people are jabbed and totally mind controlled by the system and have no idea what's going on. They think they do. Everybody knows something, right? And here's another one from Japan. Japanese here, stay strong, Canada. I'm going to buy Canadian products. It's total nonsense. These people are all speaking nationalist sentiments, believing that they are free and sovereign citizens of their whatever country they come from. Here's another one from Europe. Boycott of U.S. products and services has started. We stand with Canada. They should be standing against the beast, but they have no idea. Here's another one from Italy. I love the true North standing strong. I stand with you, Canadians. Italian. It's coming from all over the world, people. People have no idea what this story is all about. They are thinking humanist, sovereign, citizen, independent, free sentiments, which disappeared in 2019 for good, never to come back. So finally, and this is what we've been hearing in the news in recent days, no, Donna isn't a Russian or a communist, as the MSM is now suggesting. Russia and Putin are not the enemy. These people are all fascists working for the Roman beast, and they have been their whole lives. They're all working towards this one world, Roman one world order. It's here. It's just not here in its entirety yet. So keep your eye on these Jesuit-controlled governments going forward as they continue, to destroy the economies, put prices through the roof, ruin people financially, drain their bank accounts, make them unemployed and homeless, and then put them all on the beast digital UBI or Universal Basic Income Plan. This is where we're heading, and very fast. Donna and all the other tranny politicians are traitors, destroying their countries for the beast. If you can't see this or refuse to believe it, then I can only hope that God will open your eyes to this reality before it's too late for you. Now, in this video, I want to extend out the information that I shared in the last video titled Testing. We are now in a perfect storm of autoimmune diseases or AIDS sickness worldwide. I've been talking about this inevitability for years now, and of course we have been in it full steam ahead since 2020. Now the it I'm talking about in this message was first called Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome, or AIDS, AIDS, in the early 1980s. In fact, in order to perpetuate the science virus myth, they attached the fake HIV or Human Immunodeficiency Virus to the AIDS acronym, making it more scary and giving it an air of medical legitimacy. HIV AIDS does not exist. It is a fiction. Does AIDS exist? Not as a singular disease. It exists as a condition that manifests itself as many different diseases or conditions. It's a condition that manifests itself as many conditions, is the best way to describe this. Now, AIDS simply stands for autoimmune disease, and that is what long COVID is. I checked what the difference is online from an encyclopedia or dictionary, and the medical cult divides up these terms as if they were different things differentiated by a virus. But they are, in fact, the same thing. Note that the acronym AIDS for both is exactly the same. So there are now hundreds of different nervous disorders listed by the medical cult, but they are all caused by chemical nerve damage to the brain and body. COVID, test, and vaccine toxins are largely responsible for the huge surge in AIDS over the last 5 years. Nerves control every function in the body, so damaging them is the key to propagating every disease imaginable. If you damage nerves, you have a disaster in a human body. Now, the chemicals are the metaphorical genie released from the bottle to plague mankind. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a plague of chemical nerve damage worldwide. And it's rising. The wave of sickness is rising. Now, if you can't see it immediately where you are, it means nothing. It just means that you are insulated to some degree from what is happening worldwide. Don't be fooled by this, because what I'm telling you is the truth. Revelation 18:23 states, "And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in you, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in you. For your merchants were the great men of the earth. For by your sorceries were all nations deceived." Do you hear that? For by your sorceries were all nations deceived. Now, most of you already know that the English word sorcery is the Greek word pharmakia in the Bible, which is the English word for drugs made from chemicals. Drugs and chemicals. You have to see them as a one thing, people. Now, we are living in the time of the great poisoning of mass populations by toxic chemicals of all kinds, as well as Roman allopathic medicines or drugs, just as Revelation describes. This chemical storm has never happened before in world history. Now, I guarantee that siren is a call out to somebody who has suddenly taken a turn. From what? Well, from the shots. All around me, I'm surrounded by people afflicted with illness. All around me. Hearing reports of this all the time through various people living in this apartment complex. This is happening all over the world. All these people have had the shots, virtually all of them. I would say 98% of them. And we're seeing the outcome. We're seeing ambulances, paramedics, fire trucks pulling up to this apartment building regularly. This is very, very noticeable in the place where I live, because you can't help but see what's going on. It's not a huge place. It's the western end of the city and has a population of probably around 25,000 people. But you notice what's going on around you if you have eyes to see. People are sick everywhere. Now, recent Civic Science poll, that's the name of the poll, Civic Science, results reveal the picture of maintenance prescription drug use in the U.S. has shifted dramatically. The number of U.S. adults who report taking at least one prescription medication per day is now 70% of the American population, a 14 percentage point increase from 2019. Why? Because of the shots. People are sick and are now on medication to counter the effect of the shots in their body. 67% of Canadians reported taking or being prescribed medication in the last 12 months, according to Statistique Canada. This number would parallel that of the USA. 18.8% of Canadian adults aged 40 to 79 use 5 or more prescription drugs in the past 30 days, according to the CDC. This is happening everywhere, people. It's not just America or Canada. It's happening worldwide. The problem for many countries is they do not have access to these drugs, and they are just dying, never to be heard of again. They don't even become a statistic that we can study. Now, nearly 70% of the United Kingdom population has received prescriptions for one or more medications, with increasing proportions receiving prescriptions for 5 or more. The high rates of medication use increase the complexity and cost of healthcare. And healthcare is decreasing, not increasing. It's not increasing to meet the demands. It's decreasing. It's worsening. While the medication that people need to take to stay alive is increasing. Now, is the situation any different for Australia or China or any other European country? No. The toxic drug and vaccination regime has reached to the ends of the earth, even Africa and South America, everywhere. The drugs found in products of all kinds, including all injections, have deceived the nations just as Revelation prophesied. The very foundation of society, which is good health, is crumbling fast. And it is, people. Society is crumbling because its health is crumbling. When people can no longer function from day to day in a normal capacity, that's it. It's over. And when 10 people need to be brought into play to look after one person to keep them alive, it's the end. Because there's just not enough well people to look after the sick people. It just isn't anywhere. It's not sustainable. Now, were we warned about this chemical poisoning inevitability? Yes, we were, in many movies. I also did a video quite some time ago called Chemical Brothers. If you haven't watched that video, I urge you to go back, find it, and watch it. I cannot remember the number. Chemical Brothers, where I explained all the chemicals, where they were coming from, to some degree, in some detail. And that would be good background information on this particular topic here, which I'm touching on yet again. Chemical Brothers, please watch that if you haven't done so. Now, one Hollywood movie that comes to mind in particular, and this is just one, I'm sure you can think of dozens, is the Batman movie from 1989. 1989. Did you know that is a 666 year? 666 year. And when you have a 666 year, you need to pay attention to the events that occur in that 666 year, because they take advantage of what they believe is satanic good luck with their enterprises in utilizing those 666 years. So in 1989, this first Batman movie, and the plot line in the movie is the poisoning of Gotham City citizens with chemicals. Fancy that. Now, this is an early demonic prophecy that has been coming to pass increasingly over each decade of the last 35 years. Now, I have put together a 5-minute 14 video clip compilation from the Batman film to remind us all that Satan has been telling us all along in his cryptic movie language. He's been telling us about what he's going to do. And boy, he has kept his word. We were all being programmed with predictive suggestion in the movies. Not many saw this coming, and if they did and issued a warning, it was ignored. Now, please watch this short clip, and I'll see you afterwards.
New and improved Joker products with a new secret ingredient. Smiley.
What is this?
Now, let's go over to our blind taste test.
Love that Joker.
Where's it coming from?
I don't know.
Uh-oh. You don't look happy. He's been using Brand X. But with new and improved Joker brand, I get a grin again and again. That luscious tan, those ruby lips and hair color, so natural, only your Undertaker knows for sure. I know what you're saying. Where can I get these fine new items? Well, that's the gang. Chances are you bought them already.
Love that Joker.
So remember, put on a happy face.
Trust, who do ya? Trust, what makes you a real lover? Trust, I put this question to you 'cause I want you to be with me. Love, you cannot imagine how much I wanna give to you. Getting so excited, just thinking about all we could do. Another world awaits us, another power to see. Close, don't worry about nobody else. No, you'll be here with me. Trust, who do you trust? That makes you real love. Trust, I put this question to you, I want you to be with me. Money, how much you make you happy? You can have it all if it'll suit you right. Nothing, I said nothing can take the place of you and me. Kicking it tight, tight, come on. It's easy, just let yourself go. Don't put up a fight. Sex, it's not that type of party. Girl, get it higher tonight. Trust, who do you love? Trust, what makes you a real lover? Trust, I put this question to you 'cause I want you to be with me.
Get him. Take the pictures. Gotham's green.
Trust.
And now, folks,
It's time for Who Do You Trust? Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust? Me? I'm giving away free money. And where is the Batman? He's at home, washing his tights.
Winged battle flies through the night and finds me ready, Bob Mask.
Mask, put him on now, man. And now comes the part where I relieve you, the little people, of the burden of your failed and useless lives. But as my plastic surgeon always said, if you gotta go, go with a smile.
Smell like gas. He's going to kill everybody!
Get in the car.
No!
Get in the car.
No!
Now take special note of brand X in that clip, which relates to disease X that we have been hearing about for 2 or 3 years now. Will disease X appear and shut the world down again? We don't know. I don't think so, but it could happen. It's hard to say with the Jesuits. Now, note how the customer who used Joker's Smilex products died happy with a grin on his face. Notice the name of the product, Smile X. That is a straight metaphor for all the dead poisoned by tens of thousands of Roman chemical products. Now note how the crowd was given free money before they were gassed to death in the streets. Take note of the theme of trust being sung in the song and also voiced in the Joker's short speech to the crowd before he gasses them. That's the Jesuits. They are killing people and laughing and joking while they're doing it. They have no regard for human life whatsoever. They do not care whether you live or die. And the faster we die, the better for them. That's Jesuit thinking. Take note of the theme of trust being sung in the song. I think the song is by Prince. And also voiced in the Joker's short speech to the crowd before he gasses them. He says, "Who do you trust?" Hubba, hubba, hubba. In slang, hubba, hubba, hubba indicates sexual excitement. He is sexually aroused by the prospect of killing everyone. That's Satan, people. That's the satanic mind. Then he says, money, money, money. Like hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. 333. Can you see the 33 there? Hubba, hubba, hubba. And money, money, money is a 33. He says again, who do you trust? He says, I'm giving away free money. No such thing as free money, people. Before Batman arrives and steals his gas balloons. No such thing as free money. Everything in Satan's world has a string attached to it. That's why everybody is in debt. Whether they want to believe this or not is irrelevant. You are. Every human soul is in debt to the beast. He has indebted us all. Now, the Joker is Satan, the beast, and the Jesuits all rolled into one. They have been poisoning mankind for hundreds of years now. please take special note of how that clip ends, with people poisoned, lying in the street, clutching a handful of banknotes. That is a powerful reminder of what people are doing every day, dying while clutching onto the money they think belongs to them and somehow will save them. Don't do this, people. Put your full trust in the Lord Jesus Christ and not in anything you have on this earth, because it can be taken away in an instant, in a flash. Now, one special thing to take note of in this short clip is the Joker's silver throne. That is actually a replica of Queen Christina of Sweden's coronation chair created in 1650. It is highly likely that the Swedish government paid to have this set piece put into this movie in memoriam of this Luciferian Swedish queen. Queen Christina, according to the records, converted to Roman Catholicism and was highly likely to have been intersex and a sodomite. Now, nothing goes into movies without a good reason. Satan always glorifies his villains as heroes in this world. Satan is the Joker. The Joker is Satan, and the Joker is personified as evil nobility. In fact, the prince of this world. That's nobility, people. Can you see all the connections? And there's many, many more. I don't have time here to unpack it all. There's many, many more connections here that if you take the time, you will find. Now, I said this in the last video as well as in previous videos, and I'm going to say it again because it's so important. Every imaginable nervous system disorder now afflicting billions of people worldwide was caused by the COVID tests, and they still are. It was the COVID tests that actually initiated the fake COVID pandemic sickness. Yes, it was. Without the tests, there would have been no cases of what they called COVID. Would not have happened. It was the cases that were actually used every day in the news to legitimize the pandemic psyop and the need for world lockdown. If we investigate any of the very early cases of COVID in 2020, we will find that these people had already tested themselves, and that's why they became sick and were then recorded as a COVID case. It is the tests, people, that triggered this whole fake pandemic and turned it into a vaccine, test and vaccine injury pandemic. Now, as stated in the last video, COVID PCR tests were rolled out first by the CDC on February the 5th in 2020. It is these tests that started what now is being falsely termed today as a new disease called long COVID. Long COVID is a fiction, people. It is code for autoimmune disease. It is the tests that people were shoving up their noses that made them sick, which they then called a COVID infection. Once there were hundreds of millions of so-called COVID cases caused by the tests, then the Jesuits could blame a non-existent COVID virus for the wave of illness worldwide. And this is what locked the whole world down. So in fact, it is the COVID PCR tests that caused people to fall ill. This then was the false proof that the Jesuits needed to prove that the fake COVID pandemic was real and to lock down the world. The PCR tests did that. Are the PCR tests nothing? No, sir. It was on November the 2nd, 2020, something like 9 months later, that the rat tests were first used in Slovakia. The rat tests, the rapid antigen tests, which are total fraud. The PCR and rat tests do nothing except pollute your body with these advanced technologies. Now, the so-called miracle vaccine arrived shortly after in December 2020. So you've got the PCR test in February 2020. You've got the rat test in November 2020. And then you've got this miracle vaccine arriving kind of 1 month later in December 2020 under Donald Trump's Warp Speed Vaccine Save the World program. Do you remember? How people have forgotten what has happened in just the last 5 years. By the time the false COVID injection cure had arrived, billions of people had already been tested worldwide, and many, many were sick. Many of these were then urged by doctors to get a COVID injection to protect them, which made them even sicker, killing many people. It was the PCR and rat tests that enabled this medical Ouroboros, or snake eating its tail, to begin in 2020 that has now sickened and killed untold millions of people worldwide. Were and are the COVID tests diabolical and essential to the success of the Roman beast's plans to invert the world, to reset everything? You had better believe it. Absolutely essential. The Jesuits could not have triggered a tsunami wave of neurological illness without them. Will everyone who tests be affected the same way? No, they won't. Nevertheless, the implementation of the final microneedle patch, which lies ahead of us, would not be possible if the COVID tests and injections working together had not prepared the way. Prepared billions of minds and bodies for its arrival and acceptance over the last 5 years. All these tests and injections have been preparing the way for the final third stroke and you're out. Mark of the Beast microneedle patch. Now, before we go further, I'm going to play a 10-minute video containing professional opinions about AIDS and HIV and different tests for AIDS. You'll hear scientists like Carrie B. Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, David Rasnick, Robert DePreto, and Rodney Richards, an HIV test designer, debunk the ideas about viruses and AIDS that continue to drive the science medical vaccine deception today. The crazy thing is that even these men talk about antibodies as if they were real. Excuse me. When no one has ever seen an antibody under a microscope. There are no real electron microscope images, only CG images in the shape of a three-legged triskelion symbol. You can check this for yourself online. This is how they prank the whole world, people. They've turned the AIDS virus into a CGI, multi-spiked bomb. And they've turned the antigen, the fake antigen, the fiction, into a three-legged triskelion symbol, which is a pagan symbol. Now, viruses and antibodies are both a science presumption. They are not fact. Pay very close attention to what these doctors and scientists say about viruses and autoimmune diseases. Thank you to David, again in the UK, for sending me this link some time ago. Much appreciated. And this is the first opportunity I've had to play it in a video. I do not know the original source. This video comes from the Jonas Salk Odyssey video channel and was posted in 2023. Please watch, and I'll see you afterwards.
HIV, first of all, nobody's ever found it in a human being. Think of it. The so-called HIV tests do not detect HIV in a person. They detect your antibodies that react to some proteins that are produced at Abbott Laboratory. They do not find HIV in the person. They find a person's functioning immune system that could react against HIV if it were there.
Millions of people take tests that are referred to as HIV tests. However, the idea that there is a laboratory test that can determine whether or not a person is infected with the virus is simply an illusion. The FDA has never approved a test kit that claims to be used for the purpose of diagnosing HIV infection.
I don't recommend people ever getting tested. The reason is, I don't know what the tests mean, and I think no one else knows what the tests mean. I've never seen any evidence that what these tests purport to show, they're actually showing, namely the presence of a virus, the presence of an exogenous virus. I really would like to see the electron microscopic data of this, and apparently there is none. There is none where you've done a rigorous isolation protocol.
All kinds of diseases started coming into the AIDS family faster than anyone should have been comfortable with, really. To go from 2 or 3 to go to 30 in a few years was like somebody should have said, hey, there's something wrong here and it's got to be financial. Things don't happen that fast in science. You don't suddenly notice that one new organism is causing every problem. I mean, it was a bizarre thing that happened. It really was. It didn't really have any precedence in terms of medicine before that, unless perhaps you could think of the possession by the devil stuff, right? You see, once you're possessed by the devil, anything that happens to you or anything you do is got to do with that, right? So it makes it easier for you to get tuberculosis, and it makes it easier for you to get uterine cancer. It makes it easier for you to get Candida albicans. And so all those things can now be called AIDS. Now, why would anybody do that? And why would any reasonable doctor start lumping together various symptoms into one pile and think all this is caused by HIV?
Dr. Kary Mullis, who invented the polymerase chain reaction, gives this in '83, I believe, and he got the Nobel Prize in 1993, gives this little story that he was hired to do PCR for an HIV project for a private company, and he wrote as the first sentence of his paper, HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. And he said he turned to a virologist and said, what's the reference for that? And the virologist said, you don't need it. Well, Mullis is smart enough to know, of course, something new as this, you'd always have a series of original papers that established unequivocally that this was the cause of AIDS.
Then, and only then, I started looking into it. I looked up a bunch of papers in Science that Bob Gallo, I knew about him and had written. I figured, well, Gallo must have been the one to figure it out, because he's the name I've heard associated with it. And I looked at his papers, and I didn't find anything in there that actually showed me that there was a fact now in science called HIV is the cause of AIDS, or even the probable cause of AIDS, which is all I would have expected, the probable cause of AIDS. Highly probable, because they were attacking the whole problem by then as though it were certainly the cause. So I'd expect it to be highly probable, but I couldn't find anything that said it was remotely probable even. It was possible, but it wasn't probable. And so therefore, it wasn't even close to what you'd call a fact.
Well, I call these the AIDS axioms. AIDS is contagious, AIDS is sexually transmitted, AIDS is caused by HIV, and that the anti-HIV drugs promote health and well-being. The reason I call these axioms is because they're assumed to be true. These four statements are assumed to be true. You cannot find the evidence in the scientific literature that shows that these AIDS axioms are indeed true.
There are no really good experiments that would lead anybody who was at least maintaining a healthy skepticism to believe that HIV was responsible for this series of, not series, but kind of a loose confederation of diseases that people are now willing to call AIDS, right? It's a confederation of maybe 30 different diseases, all of which have existed in one form or other prior to the condition that we call AIDS ever being pointed out, and all of which have had some other explanation at one time or other. You know, to say that all 30 of those are somehow caused, in at least some cases, called AIDS cases, by a virus called HIV, I think I haven't seen any evidence for that. I haven't even seen anybody trying to bring evidence forth for that.
And he said he's been looking for that since, I guess, the late 80s, and he hasn't ever been able to find anyone that can give him a paper that showed, number one, isolation of HIV, rigorous formal isolation of HIV, and secondly, using Koch's postulates, demonstrating that HIV is a causal microorganism. Where is the original paper that isolated HIV so that nothing else was present, and they actually could go and find what the proteins were and the nucleic acids were? I think you won't find that paper because it hasn't been published yet.
I mean, I understand there are a lot of people, if you ask them about HIV causing AIDS as being a fact, they'll say, of course, it's indisputable. And the very fact that they will say it's indisputable might lead you to question their ability to understand scientific method. People that think any scientific fact is indisputable don't understand about scientific facts.
One of the distinguishing features of modern science is skepticism, the spirit to challenge other people's work, the spirit to challenge your own work. And I fear that this spirit is disappearing, in particular in the case of HIV and AIDS. Anybody that speaks up against or challenges some of the entrenched paradigms or principles is not only not welcome, but they are strongly criticized to the point of being called names: bigots, homophobes, baby killers, flat earthers, Holocaust deniers. Certainly this would indicate to me that the spirit of skepticism, the spirit of challenge, the spirit of scientific debate in this field is virtually completely gone.
I don't think most people got involved in it really looked at it and said, I don't think this is really true, but I won't get into it anyhow. It wasn't like that. It was like they were never questioning it because it was the easy way to go. You follow, I mean, if somebody's paying you $150,000 a year for working on something, you don't have to be questioning whether that's useful every day because it's useful to you. I mean, if you're trying to work your way up in IBM, you don't immediately go to the chairman of the company and say, does this company actually do what it says it does? I mean, are we really for real? I mean, you don't do that, right? So the fact that everybody that works for IBM believes in IBM as a company does not say that IBM really does what it says it does. It just says, well, of course, everybody that works for IBM kind of toes the line, right? So everybody in the field of AIDS works for AIDS in a way. I mean, you could think of it as a big corporation that's completely funded by the federal government. It's a big company. It's a big organization which has a pecking order. Not quite as distinct as some companies, but not as indistinct as you might think. It is not a bunch, it's not 30,000 independent scientists working in their own labs with their own ideas. See, so to say that they all go for it, It just says, well, they all belong to the club, don't they? They're all being paid out of the same coffer, and they're not going to be paid if they don't go for it. So you can't, the only way to resolve this for yourself is to say, I guess I'm going to have to learn a little about it.
The evidence that I have seen shows me nothing of the sort to resemble anything approaching a scientific basis of evidence that what's called AIDS is caused by a viral entity or by a retrovirus, whatever the initials are, HIV, IHV, VIH, you can scramble them any way you like. The cause and cure for AIDS is as near at hand as an alternative hypothesis.
Now I encourage you to play that clip as many times as you need to understand these facts. That's important. Science today is not based on facts, but presumption. Science today is science fiction. The Bible calls it the lie in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. There is presumed to be a thing called a virus when none have ever been isolated in a laboratory anywhere worldwide. There is even presumed to be a thing called antibodies when none have ever been seen under a microscope. Even the idea of an immune system is a presumption because no one actually knows what that is. No one fully knows how the body is able to fight infections and eliminate toxins from the body. There are ideas, there are theories, no one fully knows. That's a fact, people. People talk about immune systems and antibodies and viruses as if they were established fact when they are not. Excuse me. Now, these false science ideas are today, like I said, accepted as fact and go unchallenged because, like Mullis said, all these people are in the same corporate club called AIDS Inc. No one is going to challenge the accepted but false narrative. No one. Kerry Mullis spoke out about it, and he paid the price. They terminated him. Any kind of autoimmune disease today, of which there are thousands, are caused by toxins introduced into the body, first by way of tests and pills like AZT, and then injections in the form of vaccines. Now put these on top of the poisoning of food, water, and air, and it is easy to understand why people are suffering from a multitude of different forms of AIDS worldwide. It is the medical profession that is poisoning people intentionally based on the false claims made about viruses and tests and vaccines. Did you know that Pfizer were openly experimenting on children with their Mark of the Beast COVID vaccines in mid-2020? Of course, they were doing this as far back as 2014 that we know of with their microneedle patches. I have covered that story in videos dating back 2 or 3 years ago. Now here is another short 5-minute 24 video clip detailing the sad story of 12-year-old Maddie, one of the young victims who was given 2 doses of the death drug. Incredibly, her parents offered her up as a sacrifice to the God of science because they trusted the scientists and they destroyed her life. Who's responsible? They are. They trusted in men when they didn't even need to. It was a trial that destroyed this young girl's life. Please watch, and I'll see you afterward.
Today, we begin with a little-told story about COVID vaccine injuries. It's the story of Maddie, one of the children who took part in Pfizer's vaccine study on children. It's a remarkable account of what happened when Maddie got very, very sick, leading to accusations that Pfizer, the FDA, and the study leaders tried to bury her case. In summer of 2020, Stephanie DeGarry and her family learned an important clinical trial was about to be launched at nearby Cincinnati Children's Hospital. It would test Pfizer's experimental COVID-19 vaccine on 12 to 15-year-olds to see if it was safe and effective. The DeGarrys, firmly pro-vaccine, didn't hesitate to let their children take part. Among 3 siblings, 12-year-old Maddie alone was chosen to get 2 doses of Pfizer's vaccine rather than a harmless placebo. It proved a fateful and debilitating roll of the dice.
Her second dose was January 20th of 2021. She had what she described as electrical shocks going up and down her spine. She said she felt like her heart was being ripped out. So chest pain. She had severe abdominal pain. She was hunched over when she walked through the door. Her toes and her fingers were white, and they were like, when you touched them, they were ice cold and painful.
Did you think right away that this was probably a vaccine reaction?
100%. There was nothing wrong with her prior to that.
Before long, Maddie lost feeling in her legs. Here she's scooting on the floor and using her hands to lift her legs. DeGarry says she was shocked when the lead study doctor offered no help. She found herself reluctantly following the advice of physicians who insisted Maddie's paralysis, seizures, passing out, all of it were caused by anxiety.
When she was in her hospital stay in April, they treated her horribly. They treated her like a crazy person.
Maddie was rushed to the ER 9 times. By the time she was hospitalized for the 3rd time, she had heart problems, seizures, was passing out, vomiting, unable to swallow, and was fed through a tube. She was in the hospital that time for a month and a half.
Hey, welcome back.
I need to take this out. Okay. Studies are conducted to identify and investigate any health risks. Maddie's reaction was a giant red flag for Pfizer's vaccine. But the DeGarrys say those involved seem more interested in blaming Maddie's illnesses on anything but the obvious culprit. While Maddie was fighting for her life, the FDA granted emergency use of Pfizer's vaccine for kids as young as age 12, based on the study Maddie took part in. In a press release, Pfizer reported its vaccine had a favorable safety profile observed across 6 months of safety follow-up data after the 2nd dose. No mention of what happened to Maddie. Parents across the country started rushing to get their children the heavily promoted shots.
I took a trip up there to the North Pole. I went there and I vaccinated Santa Claus myself.
Government / the drug company and study folks did not want to acknowledge this as a vaccine adverse event.
No, they did not.
And you feel they were not honest about the reporting
of reported it as functional abdominal pain, so it's basically a stomach ache that you can't explain.
Congress, heavily funded by pharmaceutical industry donations, has avoided the subject of vaccine injuries for years. There were no official hearings on COVID vaccine side effects.
Neither Pfizer, the FDA, or the CDC has ever talked to us or attempted to. We have never heard anything from them.
By then, COVID vaccines have been given to young people for 6 months, with sometimes tragic results.
He got vaccinated on a Friday, and on Sunday, Sunday morning at 1 a.m. was on life support. He was diagnosed with myocarditis. Doctors, of course, would not say it was vaccine injured, but why would a 6-year-old have myocarditis?
My son Sean played hockey his whole life. To continue to play hockey, he had to get a vaccine. He took 1 Pfizer shot and died 33 days later.
The DeGarrys gave the government and those who experimented on Maddie permission to talk with us about her case. However, Pfizer, Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and lead study scientist Dr. Robert Frank declined comment and wouldn't answer our questions. Same with CDC, which also wouldn't tell us how many adverse event reports in children it's received for COVID vaccines.
July of 2022, we saw a neurologist that specializes in autoimmune reactions that cause neurologic problems. And she was diagnosed with chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. So basically, that's where your body attacks your nerves.
That's an immune disorder known to develop after other vaccinations, too, and is reported in other COVID vaccine recipients after Maddie. In small advances, DeGarry says there's hope Maddie will eventually recover, though the family will never be the same.
It's a story of opening up my eyes, seeing things. I trusted the government, I trusted doctors, I trusted hospitals. what I thought they were is not what they are.
We asked federal health officials if they agree with Pfizer's published claim that, quote, there were no vaccine-related serious adverse events in their study on children, but they declined to answer the question.
A big question that I want to know the answer to is, what happened to the other children in these trials? We aren't told. Only God knows how many children across the USA who were injected in the 2020 to 2023 time period and as young as 6 years old were maimed and killed. To this day, no one knows how many people are suffering from vaccine-induced neurological AIDS conditions because the records weren't kept or were altered and destroyed. Parents were getting their children vaccinated with the death shots because they were told no shots, no school, and they trusted men. We do know that 90% plus of the American population was tested and injected between 2020 and 2023, and many of these were children. No one even talks about this. No one sees the connections. Now, before we move on, let's look at 5 scriptures from Revelation that tell us about the level of death and destruction God said would come upon the earth. All these events occur over a long period of time, although some of them indicate that they happen towards the very end. But they don't say that. There is no fixed time period where these occur over the last 2,000 years. But if we look at worldwide mass poisoning, we can only assume that these scriptures are basically relating to this present time period of the last century or so. Now, Revelation 6:8 states, and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto him over the 4th part of the earth, a quarter of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. This is the 4th seal. Now, we've seen death all over the earth for thousands of years, and particularly over the last 2,000 years. Killing with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. We've seen that. That's what's been going on. And here God is specific in telling us that the destruction takes place particularly by the green horse rider over 1/4 of the earth. We know that the green horse rider comes last, and that this is the paradigm we now live in at the end of time. Green stands for the UN Agenda 30 Sustainability Environmental PSYOP. Now please watch video number 335 titled Crown and Bow. This will give you a lot more detail about the pale or green horse and its meaning. Now, once again, we cannot tie all these events to one specific period of time. But if we're talking about the pale horse, we're talking about now. We're talking about the last 50 years. Because the pale horse rider had not appeared before then. The pale horse rider is an invention of the United Nations Sustainability Agenda 30 program. So we can tie some of these scriptures to specific periods, but mostly they are in general. The Revelation 8:9 states, and the 3rd part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the 3rd part of the ships were destroyed. This comes from the 2nd trumpet. And here God is specific in telling us that 1/3 of creatures and ships were destroyed. Now we know that both creatures, seas, and ships are symbols for people. So 1/3 of the world's population, is that over 2,000 years, or is that in one particular period of time? We don't know for sure. It doesn't say. Now Revelation 8:11 states, and the name of the star is called wormwood, and the 3rd part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. This comes from the third trumpet. Now here God is, in general, telling us that waters, which again symbolize people, were poisoned and that many people died. Now for more information about this event called Wormwood, please watch video number 200 titled Wormwood, where I explain many of these things. Revelation 9:15 states, "And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men." This comes from the sixth trumpet. Here again, God is very specific in telling us that 1/3 of the world's population will die. We are told that this happens over a period of 13 months, 1 day plus 1 hour. This doesn't happen overnight. So here we are given a specific period of time. 13 months, 1 day plus 1 hour. When does that happen? Well, we're not sure. 1/3 of the part of men. Revelation 9:18 states, "By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths." This comes from the sixth trumpet. Now, once again, God is specific in telling us that 1/3 of the population will die by what is called fire, smoke, and brimstone. We are not given a time period here. We are also not told specifically what the fire, smoke, and brimstone symbolizes. There are no further scripture references in Revelation telling us exactly how many people will die from the plagues and how much of the earth will be destroyed prior to Jesus' second coming. Just these scriptures. 1/3 of men, 1/4 of the earth. So you'll notice that fire, smoke, and brimstone is symbolic of the lake of fire. So it could be very well that there is symbols being used here which we don't fully understand and which actually symbolize death or the final lake of fire. Now, the only other number given is 200,000 or 200 million for the Scorpion army of medical workers worldwide described testing and injecting the nations in Revelation 9:16. And I have no trouble believing that there is an army of 200,000 or 200 million people worldwide working in the medical industry in some degree, shape, or form. If we take them all together, I don't have any problem with 200 million people. Now, we don't know, like I've said before in previous videos, we don't know what the true population of the world is right now, today. We don't know. And it's not what they are telling us. But 200 million, an army of 200 million medical workers working in every sphere of the health and medical industry does not sound unbelievable to me. Now, please watch video number 257 titled Revelation and video number 337 titled Apocalypse. These two videos will help you get a correct understanding of the wonderful book of Revelation. It does not have to be a mystery to anyone when Revelation is approached properly, sensibly. Video number 337 has a slideshow which will prove helpful to many viewers. Now, an article titled "We're Losing Decades of Our Life to This Illness, Long COVID Patients on the Fear of Being Forgotten" was posted by The Guardian on Sunday the 2nd, March 2025, not too long ago. And it has a subtitle, "5 years on from March 2020, millions of people still face debilitating symptoms with huge repercussions on public health and productivity. But politicians are starting to pretend the pandemic never happened." That's right. For many people, the pandemic is a distant memory already. And yet, that fake pandemic and all the events that happened in it are affecting every single life today in some way, directly or indirectly. Now notice the complaint by the vaccine injured is my life. I'm losing my life. That's all they care about, saving their lives, just as Jesus said. He told us not to do that, but people without hope, without God in the world, that's all they're interested in is my life, my happy life. So self-centered, selfish, and egotistical. It's unbelievable. But that's what we see. That's what we hear people saying all the time. Now, the lie of the COVID virus is kept alive in this article. There's many omissions, things that are not said, that should have been said, that would have made this article more believable and more factual. Now, I'm going to read parts of this article because even though it's a little bit long, it's important. Because this is what people are saying now. And we need to know what is going on now, what people are saying now, what people are thinking now. Now, the article states, and I quote, on the 20th of March 2020, Rowan Brown started to feel a tickle at the back of her throat. Over the next few days, new symptoms began to emerge. Difficulty breathing, some tiredness. By the following week, the UK had been put under lockdown in a last-minute attempt to contain the spread of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. No one else she knew had yet been infected, so she posted updates on Facebook to keep people informed. Oh, guys, it feels like a mild flu. Tonsillitis was definitely worse. Unquote. Now, I'm going to say here that this person felt symptoms on the 20th of March. And remember that the COVID tests had been rolled out the 5th of February, almost 2 months prior. So this person has definitely tested already, and maybe more than once. Now, the article goes on to say, Brown didn't know then she was at the beginning of a condition that did not yet have a name, but which has since become known as long COVID. After 2 weeks, she had a Zoom with a friend, and at the end of the conversation, it was as if all life force had drained out of her body. Her doctor advised her to stay in bed for 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks turned into 3.5 months of extended COVID symptoms. Nausea, fevers, night sweats, intense muscle and joint pain, allodynia, which is a heightened sensitivity to pain, hallucinations, visual disturbances. By the end of the 3 months, she had noted 32 different symptoms. I didn't recognize the way my body felt at all. My skin, my hair, she remembers now, it was like being taken over by a weird alien virus, which I guess is what happened. Unquote. 32 different symptoms of AIDS. That's what this person was suffering and is still suffering if they're still alive. AIDS. She wasn't taken over by a weird alien virus. She was invaded by toxic chemicals. Now, the article goes on to say, a busy secondary school art teacher in Oxfordshire and mother of 2, she was convinced she could defeat the virus by sheer force of will. At the time of infection, she had been doing Olympic-style weightlifting 4 times a week, deadlifting more than 100 kilograms, and doing CrossFit competitions. Every time she felt a little better, she tried to get up and be active. Every time she would crash. For 18 months, she was confined to her bed with the curtains drawn. It disrupted my autonomic system so severely, there were times when my body would forget to take a breath, and I would have to lie there and manually breathe. Unquote. That's AIDS, people. Autoimmune disease. When all your systems are crashing and suffering, shut down because of toxic chemical poisoning. The article goes on to say Brown never went back to work. She lost a feeling in her hands and was unable to grip a pencil or a paintbrush, losing all muscle memory. She says, I had to relearn how to draw again. So while you're dealing with these physical symptoms, you're dealing with the compounding trauma that you have lost your entire identity, your job, being a parent, being creative, being fit, being a friend. Gone, all of it. I was an empty shell. Unquote. Excuse me. Tragic? Yes. Is this person stupid? Foolish? Yes. COVID? No. Toxic chemical poisoning. It's very dramatic stuff, right? The article then states, and I quote, Brown 48 is one of 2 million people in the UK thought to be experiencing long COVID symptoms, according to a study published last summer. Roughly 400 million people worldwide have been affected. Let me just stop there. 2 million people in the UK? No. Many, many more are not reporting the effects that are bothering them daily. They're not reporting it simply because it hasn't totally impaired them. 400 million people worldwide? No. No. Probably billions. Many people cannot report or get access to services to help them with their afflictions. Their new afflictions caused by the tests and injections. So this is vastly understated of what's going on worldwide. The article goes on to say, often long COVID patients experience mild primary infections, are never admitted to hospital, never admitted to hospital, and only realize there is a problem later when the symptoms persist well beyond the usual 2 weeks. Some make a full recovery, some see improvements over time, others like Brown have seen little progress since being infected 5 years ago. Unquote. And I can tell you that many of these people are up and down, on and off, sick, well, sick, well, sick, well. This is what we are witnessing. But this is AIDS, autoimmune disease. Bodies that are sick, that are coping now, not coping then. Coping, not coping, coping, not coping, coping, not coping, up and down. Many, many people are living like this and have never reported their condition. Now, the statement, some make a full recovery, is false. No one makes a full permanent recovery from the tests and injections. Never. However this may pan out for each individual, they never fully recover, ever. In fact, many of them will ultimately linger and die over many years. The article goes on to state, and I quote, one of the main challenges in diagnosing and treating long COVID is its unpredictability. No kidding. It says research studies have linked it to more than 200 symptoms affecting every part of the body. Many patients go on to develop complications such as postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS, and fibromyalgia, a chronic pain disorder. 59% of patients show signs of organ damage. Nearly 60% of patients show signs of organ damage. Unquote. I can tell you that it's higher than that. Most people now have organ damage and don't know it. It's never been recorded. They've never had tests done. This is worldwide. People are in a lingering state of sickness all over the world. So where are the healthy people? Who are these healthy people we see running around in advertisements, going to work, in videos? Well, they're not healthy. They just appear to be healthy. They are coping with any range of symptoms in their bodies, but they're not talking about it. They're not saying this. They're just living with AIDS. They're managing their symptoms. Now, the article goes on to state, and I quote, doctors are still searching for the root cause of the illness. Is it microclots, cytokine storms, histamine intolerance, gut microbiomes, lingering spike protein in the brain, dysautonomia? There is still no biomarker test that confirms whether someone has long COVID or not. Unquote. Unbelievable. Doctors are still searching 5 years later, and the answer is sitting right there in plain sight under their noses. The scripture is so right when it states, professing to be wise, they became fools. Science, medical fools. They are looking for a biomarker which they will inevitably just make up and add to the other science fictions surrounding this science fiction chemical poisoning horror story. Now, the article goes on to say, and I quote, in the absence of concrete answers, clinics around the country, clinics around the country are focusing on helping patients manage the condition. Did you hear that? Clinics around the country are focusing on helping patients manage the condition. That's exactly what I've been saying. The article says there aren't simple medicines that deal with the whole problem. No kidding. But they say some medicines can help different parts of it, says Dr. Melissa Heitman, who leads the University College London Hospital's specialist long COVID clinic. Unquote. Now, this is true. Some drugs are keeping people alive, like blood thinners, antipsychotics, anticoagulants, sedatives. Many people are on weekly dialysis to filter their blood. Many people who should have died from the tests and injections are being kept alive artificially today. This is why we aren't seeing hordes of people dropping dead instantly everywhere constantly. That's why we're not seeing this. And if we were, the horror story would become more evident to all those people who have injected, but it never will, because they're not seeing this. The medical system has perfectly covered this whole ongoing genocide. They've covered it up. Dr. Heitman states, and I quote, my own experience of long COVID began on the first day of lockdown, 26th of February, when I felt the virus moving from limb to limb like a malevolent force. Very dramatic. She says, the air I breathed felt like it would not reach my lungs, as though I were being suffocated from the inside. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. I first wrote about the effects of the illness on my body and mind in these pages in November 2020. A month later, just as the symptoms were starting to show signs of improvement, my partner and I were reinfected following a walk in the park. Unquote. Reinfected. Walking through the park in the fresh air. The insanity of what these people believe is beyond comprehension in their refusal to look at the truth sitting under their noses. The article goes on to say, for more than 3 years, I struggled to breathe, work, socialize, or do almost anything at all. I compiled a list of activities that flared up my symptoms: loading the dishwasher, playing Tetris. Strong emotions of any kind, spicy food, watching a film, drinking alcohol, doing a crossword. Unbelievable. In other words, anything in life was aggravating her symptoms. The article goes on to say the only things that helped were rest, sleep, and spending a lot of time horizontal on the sofa. Imagine people, billions of people, spending days, hours every day, lying horizontal on the sofa. That's what the last 5 years has consisted of. How the world has kept on going with the appearance of normalcy is quite a feat that the Jesuits have accomplished. The article goes on to say, I found temporary relief in vagus nerve exercises, and a meditation course kept me connected to sanity by a thin, delicate thread. In something approaching a fugue state, I wrote a short, strange novel about a woman losing her mind in the Italian Alps as I painstakingly attempted to regain my life in the 10-minute radius around our flat. Then slowly, in stops and starts, the setbacks became shorter, less intense. By summer 2023, I had started to feel something like my former self again, rather than a husk. Life became a succession of firsts. The first face-to-face meeting with friends, the first meal out, the first time back in the office, the first music festival, last year's bucolic, life-affirming green man. Unquote. Did you hear that? All these people have returned to something they call normal, but what they aren't saying is all the drugs they are taking to maintain that normal. That's what's absent from this story. Imagine this person finding life affirmation in a Green Man music festival. That's what these people are doing. That's what they live for. It's absolute wickedness. So this person states, Heitman states, and I quote, often the people we see in clinics were completely well before. Completely well! Fancy that! And now they're really poorly. Well, fancy that. No kidding. It is more common in women, but 30 to 40% of our patients are men. Now the sentiment is echoed by Dr. Ben Sinclair, a GP who started running a private long COVID clinic after becoming seriously ill with the condition himself. Notice how we're running through different testimonials here. He says, my average patient is previously very fit, very successful, and desperate to get back to normal life. He says, the people I'm looking at are actually incredibly motivated, the movers and shakers of society, and we lose them to our detriment. Unquote. He says the figure of 2 million patients is likely an underestimate. No kidding. He says people underreport this. Probably 10% of people will go on to develop some form of post-COVID syndrome. No kidding. He said, I think we probably have a higher incidence, particularly among children, than is being currently reported. Unquote. No kidding again. According to the latest figures released by the Office for National Statistics, 110,000 children in the UK are living with long COVID. In the US, the figure is thought to be 5.8 million. I can tell you, people, it is far higher than that. It is everywhere. 10% of 68 million people in the UK is 13 million people with COVID vaccine injuries. Even that is a very conservative number, I believe. Many people are being kept artificially alive by private treatments and drugs. Stop these, and the death rate would skyrocket virtually overnight. Now, the article states, and I quote, Evelyn Godfrey from Cheshire was 12 when she contracted COVID on a family holiday in October 2021. 2 weeks later, she went to school after testing negative. You see, she tested negative. But within a few hours, she was falling asleep in class and had to call her mom, Donna, to pick her up. Within a few hours, she was falling asleep. Incredible. So she tested negative, and then the effect was she was falling asleep in class and had to call her mom, Donna, to pick her up. Now, was she already injected? I would say so. October 2021. the injection program had already been running for nearly a year. So she was tested for diabetes, asthma, Addison's disease. There were ECGs, blood tests, x-rays, ultrasounds of her heart. Everything came back clear. It is a bit disheartening because you know something's wrong, but there's no evidence, she recalls. It took a year and a half to get a diagnosis. Her dad, who also developed long COVID, was diagnosed in 2 weeks. It isn't just grown-ups who get it, she says. Kids definitely get it as well, but I didn't even know it existed until I had it, unquote. These people are so entrenched in their belief in viruses that they cannot even see that it is the tests and the vaccines that they are sick from. She tested negative so she could go back to school. They leave out mentioning, like I said before, that she must have tested positive first before this all started. Or did she get the injections first? And see, this is what's missing from this article. There's virtually no mention about the tests, the frequency of tests and injections that these people who are now suddenly claiming to be suffering from long COVID. We're not told. Now, definitely her father also tested and injected because he also got sick. And this is how these articles leave out the critical information which enables us to see which came first, the test or the fake COVID. You see, this chicken and the egg thing. Which came first, COVID or tests and injections? Well, obviously it's the tests and injections which came first because COVID is a fiction. Now, the article states, and I quote, one of the groups that was especially badly hit by long COVID was healthcare workers. No kidding again. The article states, owing to high viral loads, poor PPE provisions, and a lack of immunity from prior infection or vaccines, hundreds of doctors and nurses died of COVID, and a significant proportion went on to develop long COVID. Many have had to take early retirement on ill health grounds. A 2023 study reported that 1 in 5 doctors, were left unable to work, with less than a third working full-time. A third of the doctors in the UK are working full-time, according to this study. Nearly 300 doctors and nurses, some of whom have been left living in poverty or homeless, are in the process of suing the NHS, the National Health Service, and other employers for compensation. The lawsuit is unlikely to go to the High Court before 2026 because of the public inquiry into the handling of the pandemic, unquote. Notice how they brought in a public inquiry, which goes for years and years, which kept the lawsuit from going into effect. And by the time the lawsuit goes into effect, 2026, and by the time it finishes, most of these people will be dead. That's how the Jesuit law system works. And this is the unspoken truth of the tests and injections in the UK. Hundreds of nurses dead, many sick, 1 in 5 doctors unable to work, with 1/3 working full-time. 300 of them are suing the NHS. Repeat this in every country worldwide that we're not being told. We're not being told this story. Multiply this story by 195 plus countries, and you get a true sense of what is really going on worldwide. Now, the article states, and I quote, Layla Moran, MP for Oxford West and Abingdon and chair of the Health and Social Care Committee, is pushing for affected workers, doctors, nurses, social workers, transport workers, teachers, to be compensated. And she says, now I'm in touch with nurses and doctors who are at their wits' end. Are you hearing about that in the news? Virtually zero. The article goes on to say, one solution, she says, would be to classify long COVID as an occupational disease, as more than 50 countries worldwide do. Did you know that? That 50 countries have now classified long COVID as an occupational disease? That would mean they'd be able to get benefits specifically for that. It's the very least we owe these workers, unquote. So what this means is that all countries will have people suffering from long COVID, that'll be virtually everybody, on the UBD, because they can get this, they can claim this condition as an occupational disease and get benefits. Can you see where this is all going, people? The situation is far worse than you and I could ever imagine. I'm just trying to scratch the surface here and paint a picture for you, just in case you became lethargic, apathetic, uninterested about what's going on in the world. I urge you, do not do that. Be sober, alert, vigilant all the time to understand what is going on around you and where this is leading. Now, the article goes on to say pediatric nurse Sarah Matthews, 34, had only qualified in 2018, qualified to be a nurse in 2018, but she felt like she had found her calling. She was working on a busy ward at the Bristol Royal Hospital for Children and was due to run a half marathon the following week when she got infected with COVID in July 2021. Once again, a year and a half of testing had already been occurring, and the injections had already been dished out since December 2021. So we've got 7-8 months of injections and a year and a half of testing already occurring in the UK when suddenly she got infected with COVID. And she's a nurse, so she had to be injected and tested. We're testing regularly, right? She says for the first 6 months she didn't panic. 6 months. She said, I thought, give me another month, then I'll feel better. But once it has been 2 years, it becomes harder to deal with mentally. I just never got better. The energy never came back, she said. Twice she tried to go back to work on short shifts, but both times her health crashed. Nursing is very physical, she says. No kidding. She was temporarily redeployed as a part-time receptionist, but after moving to Wales last year to get married, she struggled to find employment. Supporting medical professionals affected by the condition, she says, should be a priority. Hospitals are already in such a dire state, and the fact there are so many nurses and doctors sitting at home, not able to work, feels like a tragedy. Unquote. Yes, it is. But there is no mention here of this woman testing and injecting prior to July 2021. But we know that nurses and doctors had to test and inject in order to keep their jobs. This is what made her sick. She states, and I quote, "It isn't just medical professionals whose livelihoods have been affected. The estimated cost of long COVID to the global economy is $1 trillion, with millions of people out of work or on reduced hours. Many workers who had to take long-term sick leave were made redundant, and lawsuits are starting to appear in the courts, with long COVID tribunals surging by 86% in 2 years. Last September, a tube driver was awarded £42,000 for unfair dismissal. Unfair dismissal for what? It doesn't say. For not testing and injecting, or for testing and injecting and getting sick and then being fired. So you see, this is what these articles do. They don't give you very specific details so you can put the full story together. It's left up to us to put the jigsaw puzzle together. Now, the article goes on to say, and this is all by design, people. Did the Jesuits know that this would play out like this? Of course they did. And they will just stall people's lawsuits until they are all destitute and dead. We're watching that happen already. And we have been watching it for years now. But it's going to get worse. Now, the article states, and I quote, the numbers of sick people leaving the UK workforce are at record highs. And there are endless articles bashing the unemployed with titles such as, who are the millions of Britons not working and why? No one seems to say, oh, it's probably because loads of people have long COVID. And that's why I'm doing this, because no one is saying this. And of course, if they have long COVID, they are all tested and injected and sick because of it. Because there is no such thing as long COVID. Now, the article goes on to say this is one of the strangest and most worrying obstacles to long COVID research and support. After the profound trauma of the pandemic, we appear to have developed a collective amnesia about what has happened. It's an understandable survival mechanism. Collective amnesia after war is a well-documented phenomenon. But it means that politically, long COVID has become something no one wants to engage with. There is definitely a political preference to put this behind us as a society, says Heitman. It's a horrible thing, and everybody wants to move forward and feel positive about the future. But whenever anyone has done analysis of fit notes and post-viral illness, it has shown absolutely that long COVID is a big driver of absence from work. It's just not reported in those high-level summary documents, which doesn't make sense to me. Unquote. Well, it makes sense to me because the Jesuits don't care, and they're just going to let this play out while people suffer and die. They don't care. This is running straight into the prophecies in Revelations about people suffering in the kingdom of the beast. The article goes on to say, worrying numbers of long COVID patients report depression, anxiety, and insomnia. In a 2022 survey, 45% of the nearly 200 patients who responded said they had contemplated suicide. It's a really awful illness, said Heitman. It's not uncommon for us to have an appointment with someone and them to share that they feel suicidal. It's a particularly difficult illness to cope with, especially in people who were previously well, and the shock of losing their health and the uncertainty about the future is intolerable, unquote. No kidding. Well, these people deserve what they got, in a sense. I'm not rejoicing over that, but when you're going to be stupid and ignorant and put your trust in men, then basically you do deserve what you get, because it will be sickness and death. Now, the truth is, many people who have tested and injected have already suicided and are gone. They will never be even counted as a statistic of this AIDS genocide. The article goes on to say, and I quote, since 2021, Heitman and her team have been running a clinical trial at UCLH called Stimulate ICP, looking at 3 different medicines for long COVID, including an anticoagulant. Remember, I mentioned anticoagulants before. The article says the trial has completed successfully with results expected towards late April or early May. We're going to come up with some really good treatments soon, she says. Research always feels like a really important part of hope. Unquote. Just as I said before, anticoagulants are blood thinners, and these are already keeping people alive. Many people. These drugs are like a new gold rush, and the companies making them have increased their value 100-fold in the last 4 years. People are simply not talking about the fact that they take anticoagulants and blood thinners every day. It's become the new normal. Excuse me. the poisoning continues. And the battle against it continues. Now, the article goes on to say, and I quote, Heitman explains that although vaccines can flare up symptoms in some patients, they are, for the most part, a good thing, reducing both the risk and severity of long COVID. Future pandemics are a concern. 5 years from the last pandemic just makes it 5 years closer to the next one, says Moran. We know it's coming, and we don't have to bury our heads in the sand this time, unquote. They know it's coming. Yeah, they keep telling us that there's another pandemic coming, and they know it's coming when the viruses don't even exist. It's unbelievable. So you can see that they're just going to keep on vaccinating until they're dead, because they think that another vaccine is going to improve their long COVID condition. It's insanity, people. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with insanity. So they all believe a big future pandemic is coming. I'm not so sure at this stage. It could happen. I think the beast planted his seed in the bodies of men, and now he just has to wait for it to grow and bear fruit. And that seed is AIDS, autoimmune disease. And we're already seeing it everywhere. It's driving society now. AIDS is driving society. It's driving how people live. Sick people everywhere. Now, the article goes on to state, and I quote, even though we are seeing fewer headlines about long COVID, previously healthy people are still contracting it, with each successive infection increasing the risk. Unbelievable. It says we sometimes will see someone who's had COVID 1, 2, or 3 times without problems, and then on the 4th time, suddenly they've got long COVID, and that makes them ill for a long time, says Heitman. Yeah, after multiple injections. The article states, more disturbing still are the risks associated with chronic inflammation for long COVID patients, even if they have outwardly recovered. It's likely to age you, says Sinclair, so it's going to shorten your telomeres and therefore increase your risk of early death. It's also going to increase your risk of any inflammatory condition. Cancer is a high risk. We may get heart disease, diabetes, dementia. There's a huge knock-on in every body system from long COVID. Unquote. And of course, that's exactly what we're seeing. Heart attacks, diabetes, dementia. It's all cancer. It's all gone through the roof. But they're blaming it all on long COVID. The pandemic, we are told, is over. In May 2023, the WHO declared that the global health emergency had ended. Phases such as post-COVID and post-pandemic are now commonplace, the article says. For some people, however, things are slightly more complex. When you're stuck with long COVID, you do feel a bit left behind now, says Brown. Everyone says, oh, lockdown seems like ages ago. And you're like, yeah, which means we've been ill for a really long time. We're watching the world move on while still facing the unknown of what our futures are going to hold. It's been 5 years. It's going to be another 5 years. We're losing decades of our life to this illness, unquote. We're watching the world move on while still facing the unknown of what our futures are going to hold. Their futures hold nothing. They just don't know it. It's tragic. So that's all they're worried about, folks, saving their lives. Exactly the thing Jesus warned us not to do in Matthew 16:25, saying, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. The writer of the article concludes with, and I quote, 5 years on from infection, I have seen improvements in my health. So the writer of this article has also got long COVID, tested and injected. She says, but I am still not quite the same as I was before March 2020. No kidding. Understatement. She says the illness has left It's marked on me something profound and indelible. I am on daily medication to regulate my heart rate and have replaced running with gentler forms of exercise such as yoga. When tired or stressed, I feel a dull metallic pain in my chest. One of the consequences of being ill for so long is that my husband and I have decided, for now at least, to focus on our own recovery rather than starting a family. I try not to think about what will happen with my next reinfection or what the health implications of prolonged inflammation might mean in the longer term. Unquote. Excuse me. Did you hear that? I'm on daily medication to regulate my heart rate. Let's multiply that by 4 billion people. Staggering. That is the reality for hundreds of millions, maybe billions of people worldwide, just like her, who submitted to the COVID tests and injections. They are being kept alive artificially from day to day with Roman big pharma, nerve, heart, and blood drugs, just as the scripture states in Revelation 18:23. It's exactly what it says. And here we are. Are we in the last days? It's incredible. Are we in the last days? Yes, we are. So finally, the writer then states, and I quote, "No one is keener to move on from the trauma of the pandemic than those who continue to feel its effect in their body on a daily basis. It may be tempting to try to put that time behind us to pretend it never happened, but for the sake of those who didn't get better, we need to keep talking about long COVID, calling for the government employers to give those who are suffering the support they desperately need. Only then will we all be able to truly move on. I've given up a bit," says Matthews. "Nobody knows what to do with us, so it feels hopeless. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I'm waiting for some big breakthrough." Unquote. If she was magically cured tomorrow, what would be the first thing she would do? She says, "I'd go for a swim in the sea, go for a run, and then go on holiday, and maybe climb up a mountain." Unquote. Once again, these people are concerned only about this life now, and they are paying the eternal consequences for rejecting Christ and following after the beast and obeying the commands of men. Now, if you want to read that full article, you can go to www.theguardian.com, Society 2025, March 02, we're losing decades of our life to this illness, long COVID, patients on the fear of being forgotten. That's the full link. But if you go to theguardian.com, you will find that article. If you just put in long COVID patients on the fear of being forgotten. It's a very telling article, people, but it tells us what we need to know about where things are at the moment. In another article titled, "I'm a long COVID researcher and I have long COVID," with the subtitle, "How a UCSF epidemiologist applies her scientific and personal experience to research this debilitating condition," posted March 3rd, 2025 on the University of California, San Francisco website, we read this, and I quote, "About 5% of U.S. adults are estimated to be living with long COVID, and one of them is UC San Francisco epidemiologist and long COVID researcher Allison Cohen, PhD, MPH. Cohen, who was involved in COVID-19 research since the beginning of the pandemic, was infected for the first and only time in January 2022, long time after the tests and injections had started. She says it's been 5 years since the pandemic began, and there are still no federally approved medications to help the millions of people living with long COVID. Long COVID is a very heterogeneous disease with over 200 documented symptoms, and patients often have clusters of those symptoms. Unquote. Yes, that's called AIDS. Hundreds of nerve disease conditions. She says the only thing we know that makes long COVID worse is getting reinfected. That means I work very hard to avoid reinfection. Since I was infected while wearing an N95 mask and being vaccinated, I know that one-way masking is insufficient protection for me, so I am restricted to doing things, socializing or meeting with folks, primarily outside because universal masking is not endorsed in most places these days. Unquote. Unbelievable. The writer was wearing a mask and was injected, but still got COVID, was infected with COVID. It's insane how foolish these people are, these educated people are. The insanity of reinfection, which is a total fiction. She can't even see that the trouble started with the testing and injecting. Perfectly fine before testing and injecting, and then suddenly sick. How diabolical is the virus lie? How diabolical, people. It keeps this whole thing rolling on to its end conclusion. The Jesuits have created a worldwide network of people who study long COVID now. It is another science deception of epic proportions. Millions and millions of dollars will be poured into an autoimmune disease condition for which there is no cure. COVID doesn't exist, and therefore long COVID also doesn't exist. The answer is staring them in the face, but they can't see it because they're blinded by their false belief in viruses. They are chasing a cure that doesn't exist. There is no cure for long COVID, which is just code for autoimmune disease, or AIDS. Now, remember the drug named ISM-3312, which was discovered in a matter of months by a multinational biotechnology company, In Silico Medicine? Believed to be the world's first COVID-19 therapeutic created by generative AI. One of the company's CEOs claims the drug is already as perfect as it can get, according to initial tests. Do you remember that? The title of that article was, "It's Perfect! World's first generative AI-designed COVID drug to start clinical trials." And that was posted in The Conversation, online, Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. Now, the subtitle states, "Believed to be the world's first COVID-19 therapeutic created by generative AI, the drug will soon begin clinical trials," the Canadian-founded company announced. Now, there are a lot of people who believe that these new drugs are going to save the world. They will run to get them, thinking they will cure their shot-induced autoimmune medical nightmare. It's another trick leading them to the universal microneedle vaccine patch that will cure all ills. That will be the promise. And it's what people are waiting for. They're all sick people. Sick people want a cure, and they'll do anything to get it, to get their normal life back. But of course, they never will. Well, what happened to that AI-created wonder drug? It's still around. In a News Medical LifeSciences.com article posted online April 25th, 2024, titled In Silico Medicine's AI-Designed Drug, ISM-3412, receives FDA IND approval. We read this, and I quote, "Clinical stage artificial intelligence AI-driven drug discovery company In Silico Medicine announces that it has received approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, for its investigational new drug application for ISM-3412, a small molecule inhibitor of MAT2A for the potential treatment of MAT-AP or MTAP deleted cancers, designed with In Silico's generative AI platform," unquote. So that drug is now FDA approved and has been in clinical trials since, but I can't find any real results for those trials. So there's all manner of stuff going on with AI-designed drugs. On March the 5th, 2025, an article titled AI-Designed CDK 12/13 Inhibitors Target Resistant Cancers was posted on the drugtargetreview.com website. The same company is now targeting a range of cancers with its AI-designed CDK 12/13 inhibitors. This is now being trialed as I speak on people suffering all kinds of turbo cancers. Of course, it is all pie in the sky and just another disinformation program leading people to put their trust in science fiction AI medicines. As the rising wave of world sickness overwhelms civilization, people will become desperate for a cure for long COVID or autoimmune disease. So unbelievably, there are still voices on the internet at this late stage calling the COVID-19 tests and injections a precursor to the mark of the beast. This false message instills false hope and defers the mark of the beast into the future in those who have no hope. It is a very wicked thing to do. There is no precursor in the Bible, nowhere to be found. Precursors are a false doctrine. There is also no mention in Scripture of the mark consisting of just one thing. Even though the language sounds like it, that's not what it means. There is also no mention, like as I said, of the Scripture saying that the mark is one thing. Knowing that there is no such thing as a vaccine, as science explains it, we can know that we are absolutely in the time of the mark of the beast described in Revelation chapter 13. There is no such thing as a vaccine as science explains it in the Bible. So what we see happening with people taking the mark in Revelation 13 and the connection to vaccines is not really clear unless you look at all the scriptures together very carefully. So a beneficial immune-enhancing injection has never existed. All vaccines are toxic and designed to injure and kill. I even hate the word vaccine because the word vaccine implies that it's a beneficial injection. It's a beneficial thing. Vaccines are killers, all of them. Every single one of them that has ever existed. Now, the final mark injection in this beast marking program will arrive soon. Does this man speak some truth in this video? Of course, they always do. Truth mixed with error is the most deadly lie. That is what has deceived the whole world. Truth mixed with lies. Now, here's this short 1 minute 28 video of this false prophet deceiving many. I apologize in advance for the terrible, distracting background music and the speed at which this person speaks, but it just is what it is, I guess. Please watch, and I'll see you afterwards.
Jab, no shock, no jab, no job. That mandate was a precursor to what comes next. The next thing that is coming is the microchip, also known as the mark of the beast, right? And the Bible literally says, without this mark, you will not be able to buy or sell. That COVID mandating was conditioning people, getting them ready for the next thing, which is the mark of the beast microchip. That if you get, you go to hell when you die. I'll even give you another one. Remember during COVID, and they always wanted to scan our foreheads and our hands for, your temperature to see if you're over a certain temperature. That was programming and conditioning people as well. Because the mark of the beast, right, is going to be how you pay for stuff, how you get into your house, whatever, how you unlock your car. How are you going to pay for stuff with your microchip? The Bible says the microchip will be either in your forehead or in your right arm. So all this programming and conditioning is getting people ready for the last phase of humanity, which is the mark of the beast, the final deception of the devil, and if you get that mark of the beast, you're promised eternal hellfire. Do not get the microchip. When all these mandates come out saying you have to get a microchip or else you won't be able to buy or sell, we've already seen this before with the vaccine mandates. You people that literally bully everyone to get in the vaccine are going to be the same people who are going to bully people to get the microchip. So if you're, advocating for the vaccine, advocating for masks, you're telling people, oh, put your mask up at the shop sharp, bro. You have no idea what you're doing. You're brainwashed. You probably think there's like 30 genders, and you probably agree that biological male should be in female sport. You're brainwashed. You're an idiot. Do you remember when they were mandating vaccines and they were saying no jab, no shot?
Now you may be thinking, what's wrong with this video? He's trying to warn people, which is a good thing, right? Actually, no. Truth must be complete, or it can do much harm, and this message is not complete. First of all, he's showing conflicting images of what he calls the chip. I have never done this. The chip is the microneedle patch array of chips, and that looks nothing like the two pictures he shows in this clip. Secondly, he flashes a bogus rapture image which supports that false doctrine. He states falsely that mandates will come out in the future telling people to go get chipped. Nowhere does it say this in the Bible. The mark of the beast is a deception from start to finish. People being marked do not know that they are being marked, and this program has been going on now for 5 years. Do any of these tested and injected people know that they have been marked? No, they don't. They were deceived and remain deceived to this day. When confronted with this truth, they all deny it. Every single one. These people have no idea what they have done. Now, in Revelation 13, it says that the beast causes all, great and small, to take his mark. Causes them how? He causes them to take his mark through deception, by deceiving them so they don't know what they're doing. That's how he causes them to receive the mark. He doesn't shout, come and get your mark, come and get your chip, or go and get your chip. No, that's not biblical. I hate those kind of videos. They do more harm than good. Now finally, in this last compilation 1220 video clip, the reality of the COVID Mark of the Beast test and vaccine genocide is made evident. This is just a small glimpse into what was happening a few years ago and what is now happening in every country worldwide. This giant wave of test and injection-generated AIDS is killing scores of people every hour of every day. We just do not get a sense of the magnitude of this world genocide event, but the 5 scriptures I quoted earlier from the Revelation tell us that it will happen, and it is happening. This is not future. 1/3 of mankind is dying or already dead. Now please watch this video as a way of reminder, and I'll see you afterwards.
Less than 24 hours after receiving her second dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, she was unable to move from the neck down.
Last month, a Tennessee woman who was left partially paralyzed after getting her second dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Only 11 spoke with a local woman who says she lost feeling in much of her body just hours after getting Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine.
You are, as you write, one of the unlucky ones who suffered, was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome.
A BC man who says he suffered a rare COVID vaccine injury that left him paralyzed will be getting financial support from the federal government.
Now, if you got sick after taking the vaccine, what would happen if you did get sick after taking the vaccine and when you tried to get help, everyone just treated you like you were an anti-vaxxer?
The vaccine took my immune system and just shook it around again. Agony and chronic pain.
In our coronavirus coverage, a Utah woman and Utah senator are teaming up to get some answers. This comes after a group claims they've experienced life-altering injuries that they believe are from the vaccine.
A shocking reaction to the COVID vaccine. New at 5, the CDC says coronavirus vaccines have been remarkably safe and successful, and serious adverse reactions are rare.
Yeah, more people have died under COVID this year, by the way, under Joe Biden, than under you, and more people took the vaccine this year. So people are questioning how.
Well, no, the vaccine worked, but some people aren't taking it. The ones that get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones that don't take the vaccine. But it's still their choice. And if you take the vaccine, you're protected. Look, the results of the vaccine are very good. And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine.
We used to go fishing, camping, do everything. We got the Pfizer vaccine because I thought it was to protect him. I thought it was the right thing to do. It was like playing Russian roulette. My government lied to me. They said it was safe. Now I go home to an empty house.
This is a simple, basic proposition. If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized, you're not going to be in an ICU unit, and you're not going to die.
Multiple agencies are now investigating what caused his death.
CBS 13's Marissa Perlman is in Auburn with the woman who says she witnessed that man getting this shot. Marissa?
Yeah, a lot to learn about this one, Steve. First, the county posting on social media that a person was diagnosed with COVID-19 back in December and then died just hours after getting the vaccine on Thursday. This news now causing concern in this community, now questioning the safety of the COVID-19 vaccine.
And the J&J, if you look at them, particularly in things that we really care about that are important, it's got greater than 85% efficacy after severe disease and critical disease, and there were no deaths or hospitalizations in any of the countries that were tested. And remember, they tested in the United States, in South Africa, and in South America. This is a good vaccine. I think we need to pull away from this comparing and parsing numbers until you compare them head to head. Just be really grateful that we have 3 really efficacious vaccines.
Local woman says her mother died 2 days ago after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
And now she believes the dose is what caused her mother's sudden death.
Off the top at 6, the CDC is investigating the death of an Ionia County wife and mother who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
It's one small step for Emma Berkey, but one giant leap in her recovery. It's about 6 months since Berkey suffered from rare blood clots after taking the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
From smiling with her family to an agonizing hospital stay, 51-year-old Nicole Audia says the Johnson & Johnson vaccine sent her into a physical tailspin.
I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I was out of work for 10. My heart will never be the same.
And we've got to get to this other breaking story as we speak. The FDA and the CDC has announced that they are now recommending a pause in the use of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine.
The FDA and CDC calling for a pause in the use of the single-dose shot out of an abundance of caution.
Was a pause necessary in your view?
Yes, I believe it was necessary for a couple of reasons.
So what's going on here?
Sudden death among healthy working-age people worldwide is skyrocketing. Here in America, it was up 40% during the third and fourth quarters of 2021. Our next guest contends a 10% jump would have been a 1 in 200 year event, but this was 40%.
And so we have a health problem, a national health crisis, and at the very least, it should be examined and discussed openly. Unfortunately, the vaccine is a taboo subject, and it's not allowed to be discussed in the mainstream media or pretty much anywhere near health authorities. So this is a problem that needs to be reckoned with. We need a national discussion about it. And if I'm proven wrong, that's great. But unfortunately, on Wall Street, when we see statistics like this, and trend changes like this, we become quite alarmed. And that's what I do for a living.
Family says the mother and grandmother was healthy before she got her shot and that her sudden death came as a shock. Eyewitness News reporter Jessica DeNova has more.
This Orange County son worries his mom died because of her second Moderna COVID-19 vaccine dose. A conversation with staff at the OC coroner's office about Griselda Flores' death raised red flags for Richard Cardenas and his family.
They made it seem like this was not the first call that they had.
And in this video, I'm going to be talking about a 13-year-old boy in Michigan who
who died 3 days after getting the Pfizer vaccine. The cause of death is being investigated by the CDC, and according to the patient's aunt on Twitter, the preliminary autopsy report showed that he had fluid around his heart.
And it has been almost 7 months since Abby received the vaccine. Her right arm continues to shake. After exercise, with any weight-bearing exercise, it shakes uncontrollably. All of our questions and concerns were met with uncertainty. The doctors did not know. Could Abby's injuries get better? Could they get worse as she ages? Is this the early stages of Parkinson's? No one knows, and no one has any answers. Do you know why they don't know? There are no long-term studies available. Abby is a study.
Brandy Parker McFadden is confined to her hospital bed at Vanderbilt.
Can you walk right now?
No, I can't walk. Less than 24 hours after receiving her second Pfizer COVID shot, she explains she lost her ability to move from her shoulders down.
All they know is that prior to my vaccine, I was healthy, I was whole. And then after my vaccine, I had complete paralysis of my body. I've regained the upper body strength, and I'm working towards both toes moving on left and right.
A Summerland resident is frustrated that the government's vaccine injury support program is taking so long to go through his case. A year after he said he suffered from a rare neurological condition from the vaccine that left him paralyzed from the waist down.
Both hands, they're, as you can see, they're curled in, and I don't have a lot of wrist strength. That makes obviously doing pretty much everything a challenge.
The former pilot and realtor developed a rare neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome after receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine in April of 2021.
In September last year, Hayden, like millions of others, got his first Pfizer vaccine. 2 weeks later, while he and fiancée Jax were looking at wedding venues in Nelson, he started feeling like he was having a heart attack.
I went to bed and woke up at about, I think it was about 3 a.m. with like severe chest pain. Every time my heartbeat was like a real deep stabbing pain. And I was like, babe, I'm in a bad way. I think I'm dying. And then we shot to the hospital in Nelson and we're like, oh yeah, you got pericarditis.
It's been a long road to recovery for Matty John.
It's a really uncomfortable and quite a frightening experience.
He felt like he was having a heart attack 2 days after getting the Pfizer vaccine.
I went and had the second and then it got really bad. And within about a week, I had lost, my hands didn't really work. It's there until I go to bed, and I take sleeping pills because I can't sleep because of the pain.
Brianne Dressen is a preschool teacher in Saratoga Springs who participated in the AstraZeneca clinical trial back in November.
We all knew that some people were going to draw the short straw.
And that includes her.
I'm on the bowling team from the high school, Dyer County. And I noticed when I was throwing the ball that I couldn't feel my arms or legs. So I was freaking out.
Her parents took her to see a doctor in Jackson.
When we got in finally, my doctor, my PA, told me like right off the bat what she thought it was. She was like, you have Guillain-Barré.
In the morning, I was just looking and I thought, gosh, something is weird with my face. And I thought, whatever, I slept funny, no big deal. And by the end of the day, my husband even, I was asking him, like, this is weird now. And even with kindness, he had to say, yes, it was.
A phone consult with Gibson's doctor confirmed that she had developed Bell's palsy, a form of facial paralysis.
On December 30th of 2020, I received the first Moderna COVID vaccine without incident initially. Approximately 1 week later, I recognized that my feet were numb, a sensation of pins and needles. I also began having powerful electrical shock sensations down my entire spine, radiating to my feet.
I'm aware of thousands of people like me across the world who have been struggling to get their doctors to work with them, to try and provide treatments or study them.
The scale of this is enormous, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I don't think the government has come to terms with the extent of it. You've got a situation here again where the minister is blaming the service authority are blaming the minister, and who are suffering? The victims, the victims of these vaccine damage incidents, which I fear those victims are not going to go away, and nor is this issue, and I hope the government's going to address it.
My friend Katrina, she is 28 years old. She was perfectly healthy before. She only had 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine. 5 days later, she was beginning to experience brain fog. Now she's had a stroke. She's had 3 suspected heart attacks.
And she's a very good friend of yours?
Yeah.
This vaccine poisoning perfect storm horror that has gone on for years now has all been swept under the carpet by the endless barrage of MSM media long COVID propaganda coverage. Where are these people now that were in that compilation of clips? Where are they? Are they still alive and existing on a raft of different drugs, or have they died in the last few years? No one is going to do a follow-up, and if they do, it will never be reported in the MSM. One by one, people are going to drop and be found someone, somewhere, they died suddenly. When they shifted the fake pandemic to endemic in 2023, that is when the long COVID narrative took over and kept the COVID virus lie alive. Are we now in the time that Revelation 16:10-11 describes? We certainly are. The scripture states, "And the 5th angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds." Well, you're asking, where's the darkness? Spiritual darkness, people. Not dark, spiritual darkness. That's what God's talking about here. Now, will there be some point at where there's actual physical darkness? Yes, because the scripture says that the sun will be blackened. The sun will be darkened. It'll go out, so to speak. Now, we are in the kingdom of the beast now, and we see and hear sickness and cursing all around us. I've heard people cursing God because of their afflictions from the COVID tests and injections, which they attribute to long COVID. This rising wave of sickness worldwide is about to get worse. It takes time for a tsunami wave to crash full force onto a shoreline, but when it does, the destruction is unimaginable. When the microneedle patch appears and people run to get it, and they will, it will be just a short time before horrific levels of sickness are experienced everywhere. We haven't yet seen the full reality from Revelation 16:2, which states, "And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image." Now we have seen many people afflicted with terrible skin conditions, right? I've seen many videos of people afflicted with all manner of skin conditions. Now, the Greek word for the noisome and grievous sore is helkos, which describes boils or something worse. Now, I don't know if any of you listening have ever experienced even one boil on your body in your life, but I have. And I can tell you, it is agony. To be covered with them like Job was is beyond mental comprehension of suffering and pain. I had boils as a child, which were more than likely caused by the school vaccination program during the late 1950s. I can tell you, I suffered, and on more than one occasion, until the age of 9 or 10. The current long COVID psyop is soon to kick into high gear as further test and injection poisoning takes place in billions of people. The chemical poisons are rising in bodies, and at some point is going to reach a critical mass. So watch for that. Now, I've been showing different variations of the microneedle patch in diagrams and actual photos since June 2020. Many of my videos contain this evolution of the patch technology as it has appeared covertly online over the last 5 years. Many people have already accepted patch technology and use it regularly. In video number 363, titled Mark of the Beast, I showed the do-it-yourself patch stamping mechanism produced by Australian company Vaxxas. Now, an American company called Vaxxas from Massachusetts is advertising a very similar do-it-yourself stamping mechanism for the patch. And thank you to Trisha in Texas for sending me the pictures or the link to that website. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I was not aware of this company. Now, Vaxxas and Vaxxas are both Jesuit companies working in different countries, doing something very similar. And most likely there will be others, if not already, that I have come across. Now, these all perform the same function, and this is the only durable way or method by which a person can be marked in the right hand and in the thin skin of the forehead with the advanced technology needed to connect their body to the blockchain via scanners. Now, the microneedle patch, array patch implant, contains hundreds of tiny microneedles, semiconductors or chip needles made of 3 different metals and also containing luciferase, graphene oxide, and hydrogel. This is an even greater level of perfect storm that is about to be unleashed on the world's population. Now, here are 9 pictures of the microneedle patch showing the progression over the last 5 years, I guess, even though the microneedle patch has existed in some form for at least 15 years. So let's have a look at that, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so here we can see a illustration, a graphic illustration, which came out years ago. And this is what drew my attention to the concept of the microneedle patch being the mark of the beast, the final mark of the beast. This is what drew my attention to it. Notice in the frame on the right, notice the what looks like pink spikes underneath the skin, left under the skin. And notice the cell phone camera connecting or taking pictures or whatever, connecting with those pink spikes left under the skin. That's luciferase. This is how people will connect with the blockchain, with that camera, with the camera on their mobile phones. This is what will connect with the implant in their right hand or in their forehead. So this is what started it for me way back in June 2022. My older sister sent this picture to me. To this day, she doesn't know why she sent it. I don't know either, except but when I saw it, God said to me, that's how they will apply the mark of the beast. I did not understand anything about that at that time. It has been a long learning process, long learning curve since June 2022, when I first brought this to everybody's attention. This picture gained a bit of traction on the internet in 2020-2021 time period. And it was, of course, it was all about Bill Gates being the evil bogeyman that was trying to vaccinate the world. And of course, we know that that's not true. He's just the front man. But there again, you can see the spikes with the fluorescent luciferase spikes. The glowing spikes that go under the skin, go into the skin. I have not seen this illustration for quite some time, so it seems to have disappeared off the internet. I showed this picture in the recent videos of this girl who was part of a trial in, I believe, Kansas in the 2020 time period. There she is receiving her microneedle patch. And now we don't know whether or not that was a placebo or not. And there you go. That's what it's going to look like. Well, that's what the early ones look like. The later ones, the ones that will be sent out to people in the post, we'll have a look at in a minute. That's 2020. Of course, they were experimenting with the microneedle patches on people way back to 2014 at Emory University in the United States. That is an example of a very small patch. It only has, I think, 36 needles, but you can see how small it is sitting on the end of somebody's finger. You can see the fingerprint. Very, very small. These spikes go under the skin and dislodge, dissolve. There's different methodologies for microneedling somebody with a patch. This is more indicative of what the patch will look like. This has got 100 spikes. Very, very small. This looks big, but it's actually, the patch itself is very, very small. The spikes are very tiny. They go under the skin and they either dissolve there or the metallic spikes lodge under the skin and stay there. And each of those little needles is a microchip, is a layered semiconductor microchip. And the array of spikes works together to form the implant that sends and receives signals to the blockchain from the human body. Now this is the Vaxxus do-it-yourself single-use applicator for the microneedle patch. You can see the patch is round in the center there. It's called an HD map. You push that into the skin like a stamp. And this came out a couple years ago. This is produced by Vaxxus, a company in Australia, which is fully supported by funding from the Beast system. Now, not long ago, this one appeared, excuse me, produced by another company that I just mentioned called Vaxxus. And its patent name is called Mimics. Excuse me. But it is the same type of applicator as Vaxxus, the one I just showed you. You can see introducing the Mimics platform is transforming medicinal delivery. Once placed on the skin, each Mimics transdermal patch delivers bioactive tips into the immunologically active dermal barrier. Well, that's all nonsense. These bioactive tips gradually dissolve into the body after the patch is removed, releasing their payloads of vaccines and therapeutics over time. That is nonsense. The tips will be made of rare earth. I've seen the patents. I've shown the patents in other videos. They'll be made of rare earths and they will stay under the skin. They will not dissolve. Now this is what that applicator looks like. You can see that it's very similar. You push the button in the top and it pushes the microneedle patch down onto and into the skin. Same process. It's amazing that these people have separate patents for what looks like to be almost exactly the same invention. How is that possible? Well, with the beast, all things are possible. And here you go. Vaxxus is telling us how it's going to happen. You order on your phone, the package arrives, you apply the microneedle patch. They show it being applied to the upper arm. It will not go there. It will go to the lower arm in the wrist area or to the forehead. 5 minutes later, you are marked. You're nuked. You are doomed for all time. So this is the kind of evolution of the microneedle patch over many years. And I have shown this in many, many videos since June 2020. People, we are now in the calm of the eye of the perfect storm, and there is no way out. There's another band of wind coming. What that consists of, we're not quite sure, but it will consist of a number of things. There's a super convergence of corrupt finance, false economics, science fiction, weaponized technology, corrupt healthcare, and pagan culture now taking place, and this is escalating. It's a convergence, people. All these things are now coming together. It's a perfect storm in many ways. The world has never seen anything like it and never will again. There can be no recovery from this perfect storm by some moral force of man. No, sir. And the Bible tells us that that will never happen. It is going to annihilate and consume mankind. Very soon, Jesus' words are going to come to pass. He said, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. In Luke chapter 21, verse 26. That's 100% fact. Jesus Christ had better be our ark of salvation as this perfect storm comes upon us, because if he isn't, then we are not going to make it. We are going to sink and perish in that storm. There is only safety in the ark, and that is Christ. He is our ark. The hour of temptation to join with the beast and avoid suffering will be very, very great, and those unmarked souls who remain today will be severely tested. Most of these people, both Christian and humanist, will not make it because their faith will not sustain them and fear will overcome them. Instead, as this perfect storm consumes everything in its path. Now we, as God's people, are called not to fear, but to trust in the Lord Jesus Christ with all that we have. I am reminded of the scripture in Matthew 8:23-27, which reads, "And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves. But he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he said unto them, Why are you fearful, O you of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" Where did that storm come from? I'm willing to say that it was demonic. Satan. Can he cause a storm? Oh, yes, he can. Does he have power over nature? Oh, yes, he does. Supernaturally to a limited degree, with technology to a very large degree. But he still has that power. Was he trying to sink Jesus in the boat? Foolish, foolish angel. But of course, Jesus just got up and rebuked the storm, and it had to obey him. Why couldn't the disciples understand, after seeing Jesus perform probably hundreds of thousands of miracles, that this man was God and had total control over the elements? Why could they not see this? Where was the disciples' faith in that terrifying moment during the storm? Instead of looking at the storm, they should have trusted the God-man, Jesus Christ, sleeping in the same boat. There he was, right there with them. Was he worried? Nope. He was sleeping. That ship would never have sunk. The disciples couldn't see this. Why couldn't they see that? Their salvation was sleeping in the boat with them. In the same way, we are to keep our eyes on Jesus and not the storm we see swirling around us. We got to keep our eye on it. We got to know about it, but we are not to fear it. We cannot be harmed by anything in this world. Our souls are safe in God's hands as long as we continue to trust fully in Him. Fear and faith cannot dwell together. They cancel each other out. You can only do one or the other. I encourage all of you to make your choice today to trust the Lord Jesus Christ with your life and not to doubt in any way as this storm, this perfect storm, descends upon us. If God is God, then He can do anything, and surely our little lives are safe in His care forever. Trust Him fully today. Now, if you are listening to this message and are not a Christian, not saved, not born again of the water and the Spirit, not tested or injected with the COVID vaccines, then I urge you to repent and turn back to God. It is not too late to exit from the dark TikTok beast world matrix reality we now live in. It's not too late to be saved from the perfect storm. Please consider carefully where you are at spiritually right now and do what God is telling you to do. Don't wait. Don't put it off. There's no reason to put it off. One more day. One more hour. If there is ongoing sin in your life, then get rid of it. Stop it. You know what you are doing wrong, and you don't need me to tell you what that is. Your conscience is telling you what is wrong, what you should not be doing, or thinking, or speaking. Stop sinning and get right with God. Get rid of all false teachings as well. They will keep you out of the kingdom of God. Get your doctrines correct. And you can do that by going through this extensive video series where I have exposed and taught about many false doctrines that are taking people into the lake of fire today. Time is very short. Thank you for listening, and I pray that God will continue to open your eyes as you search for the truth on all things regarding the will of God for your life. I'll put all pertinent links in the description box below as I'm able. Please share this information with others as you are able. If there's still anybody around you that remains, so that they might be awakened to the reality of this evil world system. Please go to my website, darknessisfalling.com, and record my videos from there so that you can share them with others. Do this while they remain online. Who knows when my video channels will go, and they will go at some point. If you're subscribed to only one of those channels, please subscribe to another in case you lose track of what I'm doing. That's if you want to keep following this ministry. There are the main Rumble channel, there's Rumble 2, there's BitChute channel, and there's a Brighteon channel. They're all labeled Darkness is Falling. If you're only visiting one of those channels and that channel goes, you will lose track of where I'm at. Please have another channel or two as a backup so that in case one goes, you can maintain your connection with this ministry on the other channels. So please go to darknessisfalling.com. You'll find a lot of information there about the Roman Jesuit New World Order. And you can learn all about your true enemy. Access those facilities while they're available. Who knows how long these websites and channels will be online? We just do not know. But funny things are happening. Communications being hindered all the time. If you don't hear from me, it's possible that I never got your comment. You can always email me if you have some pertinent question to ask me, or if you want to send me something that you feel is pertinent. You can send that to me at WM4Mary, boot, B-O-O-T, at hotmail.com. WMBoot at hotmail.com. As I've been saying in previous videos, I may suddenly be unable to post any more messages, and it could happen, and it could happen suddenly. All truth online is going to go, folks, so always remain vigilant, sober and alert, and be ready for that. Do not be surprised if one morning you get up and the channels that you regularly go to are gone, or you can't even get online without a special number or without subscribing. That's very, very possible to happen. Now, I pray that God would keep and bless you all in the perilous days that lie directly ahead of us. And I always hope, God willing, that I can speak to you again in another message.